When people hear the amount 500,000 pesos, there is usually an immediate reaction. For some, it feels like a large amount of money. For others, it feels limited, especially when thinking about home renovation. And both perspectives are understandable because 500,000 pesos exists in a very specific financial space. It is not small enough to be insignificant, but it is also not large enough to feel limitless. It sits right in the middle, and that middle space is where decisions become extremely important. Because with mid-range budgets, the outcome is not determined by how much you have, but by how intelligently you use it. And when it comes to home improvement, intelligence matters more than size. Because homes are not improved in one single action, they are improved in layers, layer by layer, system by system, area by area, and each layer consumes resources differently. So the real question is not simply, what can 500,000 pesos buy? The real question is, what kind of transformation can 500,000 pesos realistically create when used properly? To understand that, we need to break a home into its core components, because every house is made up of multiple systems working together: structure, function, comfort, aesthetics, and efficiency. And each of these categories plays a different role in how a home feels and performs. Let's begin with the most important and least visible category: structural integrity. This is where most responsible renovations start, not because it is exciting, but because it is necessary. Before anything looks better, it must be stable. Structural improvements include things like roofing repairs, waterproofing, wall cracks, ceiling reinforcement, electrical rewiring, and plumbing updates. These are not cosmetic changes. They are foundational systems. And if they are ignored, everything built on top of them becomes unstable. So a portion of 500,000 pesos is almost always allocated here. Depending on the condition of the home, this can take a significant share of the budget. Sometimes a smaller portion if the house is in good condition. Sometimes a larger portion if hidden issues are discovered. And this is where experience matters, because structural problems are often not obvious at first glance. They appear over time: small leaks, minor cracks, occasional electrical issues, subtle water pressure changes. None of these feel urgent individually, but together they signal system degradation, and addressing them early prevents larger costs later. Now, once structural stability is addressed, we move into the next layer: functionality. This is where a home begins to improve in daily experience. Functionality is about how a space is used, how easy it is to move within it, how efficient daily tasks become, how comfortable routines feel. For example, kitchen layout optimization, bathroom usability improvements, storage reorganization, room flow adjustments. These are not luxury upgrades, they are quality of life improvements, and 500,000 pesos, when allocated strategically, can make noticeable functional changes. A kitchen can be restructured for smoother workflow, a bathroom can be upgraded for better water efficiency and comfort. Storage can be redesigned to reduce clutter, and rooms can be reconfigured for better space utilization. Even without expanding square footage, functionality improvements can make a home feel significantly larger and more efficient. Because space is not just physical, it is also organizational. A well-organized small space feels bigger than a poorly designed large one. Now let's move into the third category: aesthetic transformation. This is where emotional perception changes. Because while structure and function improve performance, aesthetics improve experience, and experience influences how people feel inside a home. Aesthetic upgrades include painting, lighting, flooring, ceiling design, wall finishes, and visual styling. These elements do not change how a home works, but they change how a home feels, and feeling matters. Because humans respond strongly to environment. Lighting alone can change mood, color can change perception of space, flooring can change comfort level, and together these create a completely different emotional atmosphere. With 500,000 pesos, homeowners can realistically refresh multiple key areas of a house. Not necessarily full luxury redesign, but significant visual improvement. The kind that makes a home feel newer, cleaner, and more modern. And this is important because perception influences value. A home that looks well maintained is perceived as more valuable, even if structural size remains unchanged. Now let's talk about something often overlooked: built-in systems and furniture integration. This category is critical in modern home improvement because clutter is not just about lack of space, it is about lack of systems. Without proper storage design, even large homes feel messy. With proper storage systems, even small homes feel organized and spacious. Built-in cabinets, modular storage, space-saving furniture, multi-purpose designs. These systems improve long-term livability, and 500,000 pesos can support targeted investments in these areas depending on priorities. Not full furnishing, but strategic upgrades in key zones like bedrooms, kitchens, and living spaces. Now let's move to exterior improvements, because many homeowners focus only on interior spaces. But the exterior is the first point of perception and often the first indicator of property condition. Exterior improvements include roofing, gates, fencing, driveway repair, facade repainting, and exterior waterproofing. These are important not only for appearance, but also for protection. A well-maintained exterior prevents long-term structural damage and also increases property appeal, because first impressions matter in real estate. Now let's talk about something very important: budget psychology. Because how people spend 500,000 pesos is often influenced more by emotion than planning. Most homeowners fall into two patterns. They either focus heavily on aesthetics because it feels rewarding immediately, or they focus heavily on repairs because it feels responsible. But both extremes create imbalance, because a home needs both stability and livability. So effective budgeting requires balance, and balance requires planning, not impulse, not reaction, but structure. Now let's discuss value impact. One of the most common questions is whether 500,000 pesos increases home value. The answer is yes, but not automatically. Value increase depends entirely on allocation. Structural improvements increase baseline value. Functional improvements increase usability value. Aesthetic improvements increase perceived value. And perceived value plays a major role in real estate interest, because buyers are not only evaluating numbers, they are evaluating feeling. A well-maintained, visually appealing home often sells faster, and often at stronger negotiation positions, even without major size changes. Now let's talk about strategy, because 500,000 pesos is most effective when used in phases, not all at once. Phase 1 is assessment, understanding what the home actually needs, not what is desired, but what is necessary. Phase 2 is prioritization, what affects safety, what affects daily living, what affects comfort, what affects appearance. Phase 3 is execution, applying budget where it creates the most visible and functional improvement. This structured approach prevents waste and maximizes impact. Now let's address expectations clearly. 500,000 pesos is not enough for full luxury renovation. It is not enough for complete reconstruction. It is not enough to rebuild everything from scratch. But it is enough for meaningful transformation, enough to fix critical issues, enough to improve daily living, enough to refresh appearance, enough to increase functionality, enough to significantly improve comfort. And that distinction is important, because disappointment often comes from unrealistic expectations, not from budget limitations. Now let's bring everything together. What 500,000 pesos can actually do for your home depends on how it is distributed across four main areas: structure, function, aesthetics, and efficiency. If used without planning, the money disappears quickly with minimal visible improvement. But if used strategically, it creates layered transformation, not just visual change, but functional upgrade. Because the goal of home improvement is not just to make a house look better, it is to make it work better, feel better, and support daily life more effectively. And when you think about it that way, 500,000 pesos is not just a budget, it is a transformation tool, a correction opportunity, a chance to align a home with how it should actually function, not perfectly, but better than before. And that is where real value is created. Not in how expensive a renovation looks, but in how much better life becomes inside it.